of course, this is where they would gather. It was donated by Al-Arqam himself, a Sahabi, and this is where they were learning their Islam. That was their kind of school. All right, that's where they would memorize their school. It was their area where they would hear the Quran, the revelation. Let's see what some of the things, even though what's really wrong in this movie is really the age group. So some of the people that were supposed to be in there, Mus'ab ibn Umayr, perhaps Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, perhaps Ammar ibn Yasir, Suhaib al-Rumi. Those were some of the people that were there, and they were all really teenagers, but unfortunately they put them here as to more middle-aged men.
When the sun is overthrown,
That's it,
when the stars fall, when the mountains vanish, when the camels, big with young, are abandoned, when the wild beasts are herded together, when the seas rise, when the souls are sorted, when the female infant who is buried alive asks for what crime she was killed, when the books are opened, when the sky is torn away, then every soul will know what it has done. Were you there, Jafar, when God gave him these words? Dawn is coming up. Amma, you first. Then you, Jafar. Amma, you've kept your mother awake all night with worry. I'm sorry, Father. Where were you? Have you been with Muhammad again? What will happen now? Forgive him. It was my fault. I did it. That God has helped us all our lives. But it fell. It could not even help itself. What talk have you been listening to? The real God is unseen. He's not made of clay. Amma, we see the gods in the Kaaba every day. I'm afraid for you. You're listening to people who will hurt you. I'm listening to Muhammad. Muhammad is generous, yes. He gives, he shares. He pass no man without a smile. But he is spreading dangerous ideas. Dangerous ideas? That no man should starve. That the rich should not defraud the poor. That the strong should not oppress the weak. Are these dangerous ideas? Girls should not be forced into marriage, but be able to choose or refuse. Why, only tonight, he said, stop the burial of newborn girls. I was fortunate, always fortunate with your mother. Yes.
But you know that you and I nearly never met, Yasar. And you were nearly never born. I was to be buried, like my two sisters. But my father couldn't do it. He couldn't do it a third time. When the second girl was when my father was putting sand over her, she took hold of his finger the way a baby does. He told my mother afterwards that it was a minute before the tender little grip eased and he dared take away his hand. When I was born, my father ran out of the house screaming that he couldn't do it again, that he could never do it again.
So, it is the custom.
It's wrong. The gods that let such things be are no gods.
I promised to go to Muhammad's house, Mom. We pray there.
Yes, he's a good man.
Yes, you go.
So Sumayya bint al-Khattab is her name, and that was supposed to be Yasir, right? They were actually both slaves. Okay, at least she was a slave, but then he was a freed slave, and then later she was a slave and was then gifted to Yasir, and then got married to him and actually had Ammar ibn Yasir. They were from the earliest Muslims, but because they were, let's say, slaves and ex-slaves, that's why they didn't have the privilege that other people had, and which is why when she was killed, let's say she was killed in cold blood, and the main reason why they didn't second think whether to kill her or not was really because she had no support. So to them, nothing to worry about. You could just kill her and no one would run after you. That's why she was easily killed. But other people, it wasn't easy to kill. For example, the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because it was a tribal community. It's a tribal community. And in a tribal community, you would always worry that someone else within the tribe might actually come forth and retaliate on behalf of the person that was killed. So it was really a disgrace to the family, but they were killed because they had no supporters. And we could see that with the younger teenagers becoming Muslim, that was to them a danger, a threat to the society, because later on, this might later bring in an Islamic growth within the society. At that time, of course, a number of different things were happening. Number one is that the younger generation was finding Islam. Number two, more poor people were becoming Muslim. Three, more slaves were becoming Muslim. Tell me a name that had become Muslim that was a slave at the time. Bilal. Tell me a woman slave. Zinnira. Anybody heard about Zinnira? Nobody? So Zinnira, she became Muslim, but her master kept on torturing her to the point from the torture, and as a result of the torture, she lost her sight. So he kept telling her that you lost your sight not because of torture, but because the gods were cursing you. So she kept on making dua and she got her sight back. Later, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq bought Zinnira and freed her. Bought Zinnira and freed her. Give me another slave.
The slave that the nurse, the Prophet Muhammad, did she become Muslim or not?
Which one?
What is it? Thuwayba?
Thuwayba. So we don't really have details in that regards in relating to Thuwayba. We don't have details. A lot of the different personalities, we don't really have much known about them. But there's another guy, Khabbab ibn al-Arat. Anybody heard of Khabbab ibn al-Arat?
No.
So Khabbab ibn al-Arat was a blacksmith. What's a blacksmith?
The one who does the sword.
What's a blacksmith? Make swords. And anybody that deals with steel. Okay, how do they deal with steel? They would basically make it get into a high temperature, and that way they could easily shape it. So it requires a lot of banging. So Khabbab ibn al-Arat was not young, by the way. He was more within the 40s. Is that old?
Depends if you're 40 or not.
Depends if you're 40 or not. Fair enough.
I don't know. If you're younger, you think it's old. If you're 40, you think it's young. It depends where you're at.
Nadia,
No, not yet, girl.
not yet. Okay. So
I'm
he
enjoying my last straw.
Yeah, last straw. So Khabbab ibn al-Arat, his female master, she was a female master, because he had become Muslim, she would heat the steel and put it on his skin to torture him. He couldn't handle the amount of pain. So he went to the Prophet ﷺ complaining, like, do something, I can't, he's constantly torturing me by putting steel and hot steel on my skin. So the Prophet ﷺ kept on saying, Allahumma ansur Khabbaban. Ya Allah, give Khabbab victory. Give Khabbab victory. So Khabbab would constantly cry because the amount of pain from the steel that was put on his skin was more than what he can handle. So later, his master gets severe migraines.
You told us about it.
The severe migraines were so unbearable that they gave her some homeopath tip. You have to put steel, hot steel, and start putting it over your head for basically home remedy.
What goes around comes around. I truly believe in that.
Home remedy. Who was going to do it? It was Khabbab. La ilaha illa anta. That was their home remedy. And she would ask him to do it. And it seems like she got really sick from probably open wounds and who knows what, that she actually died because of, who knows if she got cancer or who knows why she was getting these severe migraines. But at the end of the day, or severe headaches, who knows whether glioblastoma or who knows what illness she was getting, all right, cancer, who knows what it was. But at the end of the day is that she was actually asking him to burn her with that steel. All right, let's move on with another person. Any other person that was of the earliest Muslims that you know of?
Earliest?
Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Oh, who else? Uthman bin Affan. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, out of the 10 people promised Jannah, 8 of them had become Muslim through him. Oh, is Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. Remember him? Is Zubayr ibn al-Awwam. He had become Muslim when he was young. Who's Zubayr ibn al-Awwam? Al-Awwam ibn who?
Isn't he the one that wanted to go fight with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and told him, no, you're too young?
No, that was a different one. Al-Awwam ibn who?
احنا ما عرفناش زبير بن العوام، احنا العوام ابن هو.
Fair enough. Al-Awwam ibn Khuwaylid.
So yeah,
Khadija's brother.
oh,
Al-Awwam ibn Khuwaylid is Khadija's brother. Is Zubair is
the nephew?
the nephew. You see how close they are? Is Zubair is Khadija's nephew. So he would come to his aunt's house. He would come to his aunt's house. He would come to his aunt's house, and he became Muslim through learning at his aunt's house. Zubair ibn, who's his mother?
Is it,
Safiya bint Abd al-Muttalib. Who is that?
the daughter of the aunt of the Prophet cousin.
Exactly. Safiya bint Abd al-Muttalib. So his mom is actually the Prophet ﷺ's aunt, maternal aunt. ضعتي نادية?
No, I'm with you.
I'm with you. Okay, good.
I'm just making the connection.
Get connection. You see, so his mother is actually the Prophet ﷺ's aunt, maternal aunt. His father is Khadija's brother. Zubayr ibn al-Awwam is one of the 10 people promised Jannah. He was 13 years old approximately when a rumor spread that someone had killed the Prophet ﷺ. So he runs with the sword, only 13 years old, and starts running around and searching for the Prophet ﷺ and said, I'm going to kill whoever killed the Prophet ﷺ. Only 13 years old. But Islam makes even those that are 10 and 11 and 12, turns them into men. Right? Turns them into men. Islam tells you, you're a man. Even if you're only 10 years old or 11 years old, you're a man. Right? Zubayr ibn al-Awwam ibn Khuwaylid. Zubayr ibn al-Awwam ibn Khuwaylid. All right, let's continue watching just a little bit more.
Read. Muhammad can neither write nor read.
Nobody can speak.
What did you say? He can speak? Well, so can you. So now you speak up, young man. What does Muhammad say?
They are God's words, not his.
Which gods? What words? A speaking God? Your Muhammad speaks only to himself.
When God reveals his message to Muhammad, he remembers every word. Then he tells it to those who can write. This is the Quran.
Muhammad has starved himself into dreams. He hides under a blanket with his eyes shut.
His eyes are shut, but his heart is open.
You, kick him for his cleverness.
There is no purpose in that. Doesn't Muhammad realize we live by giving housing to the gods? We own the Kaaba. Every year, the tribes of Arabia come here to Mecca to pray and to buy from us. Now, were we to replace 300 gods with just one, whom we cannot even see, who was supposed to be in Taif and Medina, here in my house, in Jerusalem, on the moon? Where would Mecca be then? The gods are both our worship and our revenue.
You cannot buy and sell God.
Young man, you are close to the whip.
Amar, be sensible, boy.
I have a question. Muhammad teaches you a slave is equal to his master. Is Black Bilal, whom I paid money for, equal to me?
Yes. Muhammad says Before God, all men are as equal as the teeth of a comb.
Oh, this is a very pleasant.
That particular hadith is not authentic, but the meaning is definitely true. Because the Prophet ﷺ did indeed regard that people with the slaves, that there is no preference, there's no superiority from a slave to a master. At the end of the day, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم ذكرا وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. The main thing is that إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. The best of you are basically the most honorable, is basically the one that has the highest taqwa. What is taqwa? Recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, piety. All right.
The idea to slaves and beggars, it gives them pretensions.
Bilal. Teach this man the difference between a lord of Mecca and a slave. Take that whip. Lash his face to teach his mouth a lesson. Whip him! Whip him! Cut. Whip him! Do it, God.
Obey them.
Kill you.
See what anarchy they bring. They've even infected our slaves. If you're human enough to have gods, remember, they're the gods of your owner.
I bought your humanity, Bilal, when I bought you. You will be corrected.
God is only one God.
Who's stronger now? Your master or this one God of yours?
One God. There's only one God.
Witness tones.
One God.
Crush him. Break him.
Have you finished with him?
There's only one God.
You could swear the slave was pitching.
What?
Lord Umayyah.
Abu Bakr will pay 100 dinar for this slave.
Wait now. It's against our social order to sell a slave during his correction.
The offer is to Lord Umayyah. 200.
If the price of slaves is raised, we shall have to bathe ourselves next year.
Take him. He's no use to me anymore. Kill him or take him. I'm finished with him.
By the way, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was actually the main figure. He bought over 70 slaves, and his father would tell him, instead of putting your money to buy off the slaves? In other words, they're really vulnerable. Why would you put your money in buying the slaves when you can invest it in something else that is better for the da'wah? But Abu Bakr as-Siddiq would refuse, just as he bought Zinira, bought Bilal, bought many others, almost 70 slaves, because he felt that he needed to contribute in helping those that don't have any support. So Abu Bakr as-Siddiq would even buy even the double the price of what the price really is, just to support the slaves. And that's why he was considered as the main important person. You know, this is important to mention, because many times we would be confused in the contribution and where we need to put in the contribution. You could see that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was saying that the contribution really needs to go for those that become unremembered, become forgotten, those that many will not see that those are the people that need to be supported. I'll tell you, like, you would see a lot of different areas. They would, once they're famous, they would get all the support, but when they're trying to build the simple things, no one recognizes them. We'll stop right here, inshallah. We'll continue next week. I could see everybody is looking at their watch. We'll stop right here, inshallah. We'll continue next week. Yeah. All right. All right. So we'll stop right here, inshallah. So let's see. How can we join those classes? Oh, the classes, inshallah, we'll be announcing about the classes before February, definitely, inshallah. So we're excited for the classes that I was talking about. Yeah, inshallah, once we get.
I think what's gonna play a role into the timing. If it's gonna be during the day, it's probably gonna work for some people. Late.
Like I said, there will be recordings that you can go back to. Yeah, inshallah.
I feel like live and recorded is not the same. I feel like it's. I mean, honest.
It's a different vibe.
Yeah.
I know, it's a different vibe.
Exactly.
It's a different vibe. But you know, talab al-ilm, at the end of the day, talab al-ilm, no matter what obstacles, alhamdulillah, right now, like never before in history, we can be at home and actually do talab al-ilm. So, yeah, right across, there's a, right next to the women's bathroom, right next to it. So even if